Now, while the Irish economy enjoyed a boom, many fancied a step up onto the foreign property ladder. Some, indeed, took drastic measures to buy their dream holiday homes and bought property of dubious value, which has since been rendered worthless.
The author of No Place in the Sun, John Mulligan, worked in the foreign property business, and although his book is fictional, it exposes some of the dodgy practices in the overseas property business. John, good morning to you.
Good morning.
John, this book would make anybody who's recently bought property abroad very, very fearful. I know it's fictional, but you have put a lot of what you have seen happening into the book. Yeah,
I would want to stress that people shouldn't panic to that extent. The book is fictional, and it's really meant to reflect a period in Irish history, if you like, when this phenomenon of people buying property abroad that escalated into almost a feeding frenzy up to a couple of years ago. And obviously with that kind of feeding frenzy, if you like, there's going to be good and there's going to be bad. Like, a lot of people did buy genuinely good properties. They bought in good cities worldwide. They bought holiday homes in Spain that they're going to get a lot of use out of and a lot of enjoyment out of. But there were markets like particularly Bulgaria, Dubai and parts of Turkey that were dodgy always. And as somebody who worked in the business, I was always fearful of those markets. I refused to get involved in them and because they didn't add up for me.
Why didn't they add up?
If you take Dubai for a start, where they were building 200 times the existing stock of tourist housing in a market that was particularly hotel focused, and where the people were going to come from for all these properties was a mystery to me. Likewise in Bulgaria, where suddenly out of nowhere huge resorts were blossoming, particularly ski resorts in secondary ski areas, and these properties were coming with the benefit of this 2-year guaranteed rental, which rang alarm bells for me in a big way.
Well, Bulgaria was always very dodgy. I mean, it was we were filming a couple of years ago in Austria, and we met a few of the skiing instructors on the Austrian runs were actually Bulgarian, and they had, because the ski runs were all state-owned, part of their salaries and their pensions were all tied up in a pension scheme, and it turns out that it is the second biggest pyramid scheme, state-sponsored pyramid scheme in the history of Europe. Only Albania was worse. So that system was rotten to the core, but we were assured that it had been cleaned up because obviously they want to be part of the EC and all the rest of it. You obviously know better.
No, I mean, the whole thing was built on shaky foundations in Bulgaria. If you go back to when communism fell in Bulgaria, you might remember the big pyramid scheme there with the where everybody was putting in their money, and then you got 10 more people to put in $100 or whatever, and so on and so on. And people thought that this was capitalism and this was the way forward, and everybody got into it. Even the farmers put their seed money in, and there was actually a famine in Bulgaria where they had, you know, but the small number of people who got out of that business with the money appeared again as developers and landowners, land bank owners along the coast. And there is huge mafia involvement and huge criminal involvement in the property and construction business in Bulgaria. But the bit that caught the Irish people was this guaranteed rent thing. And really,
whose idea was that? Was that a local idea, or was it unscrupulous agents and developers on this end?
It was agents and developers on this end, particularly in the UK. We first came across it actually in other markets, like Budapest. We saw agencies selling property with guaranteed rental, and we couldn't figure out how they were getting these rents. And when we dug into it a little bit further, we realised it was simply achieved by increasing the price.
And John, tell us a little bit about the book. The central character is a very dodgy dealer altogether. Yeah,
he is. I mean, and people shouldn't look for themselves in this book, by the way. I was very careful that there are no real people in it.
I'm at least none can sue you anyway.
Exactly. I'm too long on the road to go down that road. But it is, first and foremost, it's a light-hearted look at this phenomenon of people buying abroad. But it also is, as you said earlier, Mark, a cautionary tale of, you know, putting your brains in your pocket when you go abroad. Everything from buying timeshares from people in Spain and Portugal to, let's say, promises of riches in far-flung places.
Okay,
all right,
John.
well, it's called No Place in the Sun by John Mulligan, available in all good bookstores. John, thank you very much indeed.
Just as an addendum, I'd like to mention the Boyle Arts Festival at the end of July. I'll be signing copies there as one of the events in that. A great event, over 80 items going on in a week down in Boyle at the end of July, not to be missed.
Excellent. Okay, we've had the website up, in fact. And lovely Leitrim.
Thanks a lot.